My name is James Sullivan, and I've spent most of my life building something I believed was bigger than me. I'm 38 years old, living in a quiet, sprawling home in the outskirts of Chicago, where I grew up, where my family built their empire. Sullivan Industries. A name that echoed through generations. My grandfather started it with nothing, my father expanded it, and I was supposed to take it even further. I remember being a kid, sitting in my father's office, watching him work late into the night, tirelessly building the legacy that I would one day carry. I had no idea back then what it meant to shoulder that responsibility, but I knew it was important. My father didn't have time to spoil me with affection, but I understood the value of what we were building. This company, our name, our future. And then there was Emily. She came into my life when I was at my most vulnerable, just out of college, struggling with the weight of what my father expected of me. She was the breath of fresh air I needed, a woman full of life, warmth, and ambition. She understood the sacrifices, the long hours, the pressure to succeed. We were a team, and it felt like we could conquer anything together. At least that's what I thought. We married 5 years ago, and Emily didn't just take the role of my wife. She became an integral part of the company, helping me manage the day-to-day, working side by side with me as we took Sullivan Industries to new heights. She was my confidant, my partner, and in many ways the person I trusted most. The one person I believed would stand by me no matter what. But I didn't know then that everything we built, everything I thought was secure, was about to come crashing down. It was an ordinary evening when everything changed. I came home to find a note on the kitchen table, a simple piece of paper folded neatly in half. My heart sank when I saw Emily's handwriting on it. "James," it began, "I'm leaving you. I found someone else. Before I proceed, kindly subscribe and comment where you're watching from." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. My hands trembled as I read the rest. She was leaving me for David, someone I had considered a colleague, a competitor, yes, but never someone I'd imagined could pull her away. He had always been around, a few too many business deals, a few too many lunches, but I never thought it would go this far. Her words pierced deeper as I read on. "I need to find myself. I can't keep living like this, constantly in your shadow. You've always been about the business and I just need something more, something real." I should have been prepared for this. The late nights, the distance, the disconnect between us. I knew something was off. But to have it end like this, so abruptly, so ruthlessly, it shattered me. And then there was the other betrayal, the one that took away everything I thought I could rely on. The legacy. My family's legacy. Emily wasn't just leaving me, she was taking something I could never get back. She'd been secretly siphoning off the company's assets for months, funneling them into David's rival business. She was gone, and with her, she took a part of me I couldn't replace. Everything my family had worked for, everything I had believed was untouchable. I never saw it coming. One moment, everything was fine, and the next, the life I had built, the woman I had trusted, and the future I had fought for were all ripped away from me. The days that followed Emily's departure were a blur. The shock hadn't worn off. Each morning felt like waking up to a nightmare. I could barely look at myself in the mirror without feeling disgusted. The man staring back at me wasn't the person I used to be. Anger was like a fire inside me, but it was quickly drowned by disbelief. How could she do this? How could she betray me so completely? We built everything together. She was supposed to be my partner, my equal. Yet here I was, alone, without answers, with everything I had worked for slipping through my fingers. The fallout was immediate. Our clients, loyal for years, began to pull back, whispering about instability within Sullivan Industries. Our investors followed suit, expressing concerns about our future. Every phone call, every meeting, every interaction with a colleague or client felt like a mockery of the trust one thought I had built. I tried to hold it together, but my world was crumbling, and it seemed like there was nothing I could do to stop it. I couldn't even look at Emily's things without feeling nauseous. The house we had shared felt foreign, the spaces she had once filled now empty. I kept hoping it was all just a bad dream, but each time I woke up, the weight of the reality hit me harder. I knew I had to face her, had to understand what had happened, but part of me feared what I'd find. When I finally tracked Emily down, I thought I might scream at her, demand answers, or beg her to come back. But when I saw her standing there, cool and collected, all of those emotions seemed to drain from me. There was no apology, no remorse. She stood tall, as if she had made a clean break, as if her decision had been inevitable from the start. "James," she said, her voice steady, unemotional. "I've been thinking about this for a while. You and the company, your family's legacy, it's all you ever cared about. I was just an accessory in that life. I'm not going to pretend anymore." Her words hit me like a slap. "You were never just an accessory," I tried to say, but the words felt hollow coming from my mouth. I had invested everything in her, in us, and yet all I heard was how my family's empire had been a weight around her neck. She sighed, her eyes flickering with something I couldn't place. I didn't want to be second fiddle anymore. I wanted more. I wanted someone who sees me as more than just a footnote in a legacy I don't want to be part of. She paused. "David sees me for who I am, not for what you expect me to be. And for the first time in years, I feel like I'm alive." I didn't know what to say. Her words burned like acid, eating through the last remnants of hope I had for us. In her eyes, I was no longer the man who loved her. I was a burden, a chain to the life she never wanted. I wanted to lash out, to shout at her for everything she had done. But the words stuck in my throat, and I was left with nothing but a gnawing emptiness. She had already made her choice. I couldn't leave it at that. I couldn't just let her walk away without understanding the full extent of her betrayal. Something didn't sit right with me, and I needed to know the truth. So I began digging. At first, it was just casual, checking her emails, her phone records, looking for any sign of dishonesty. But the deeper I went, the more I uncovered. The affair with David wasn't just some fling. It had been going on for months, maybe longer. And worse, it wasn't just about their relationship. Emily had been systematically undermining the company, slowly siphoning off funds and assets to support David's business. She'd manipulated key figures within Sullivan Industries, turning them against me, securing David a foothold in places I hadn't even realized he had control over. My stomach churned as I discovered financial documents detailing the transfer of company funds into David's accounts. I felt like I was drowning, each new piece of information hitting me harder than the last. Emily wasn't just leaving me, she was taking everything I had worked for, everything my family had built for generations. I had been blind, trusting her when I should have been paying attention. She was right about one thing: she had never been truly happy with the life we had. But what hurt most was that she had done this behind my back, betraying me not just emotionally but financially, dismantling the very thing that had been my legacy. I couldn't just sit here and watch everything collapse. My father had spent his life building this company, my grandfather before him. This wasn't just business. It was our blood, our name, our history. If I didn't act fast, if I didn't stop them now, I'd lose everything. My future, my family's legacy, my father's work, all of it would be gone. I needed to fight back, but where do you even begin? I was alone, betrayed, and scrambling to figure out how to regain control of a company that seemed to be slipping away at every turn. That's when I called Catherine. She had been with Sullivan Industries since the beginning, a friend I had trusted. If anyone knew how to fix this mess, it was her. She wasn't just an employee, she was family, and I needed her now more than ever. She didn't hesitate. "You can either let them win or you can fight back," she said, her voice steady. "You owe it to your family. You owe it to yourself. This isn't over, James. Not by a long shot." It was like a switch flipped in my brain. Catherine's words hit me harder than any of the discoveries I'd made. This wasn't just about Emily or David anymore. This was about honor, about saving everything that had been built before me. I had to fight, and I couldn't afford to wait. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be clean. But I also knew I couldn't back down. Not now. Not when so much was at stake. I was going to take back what was mine. And this time, Emily wouldn't be able to walk away so easily. It's strange how quickly everything can change when you realize the power of knowledge. I spent the last few days piecing everything together: the financial records, the communication between Emily and David, the secret transfers of company funds. It wasn't just a simple affair. It was calculated, deliberate, and it went much deeper than I could have ever imagined. I met David at his office, a glass building that seemed to mock me with its sterile, clinical exterior. I wasn't here to make threats or raise my voice. I had something far more dangerous. Facts. I sat across from him, my back straight, my mind laser-focused. He looked at me, confident, smug, even like he had won. "James," he said, offering a smirk, "I wasn't expecting you. I figured you'd be sulking somewhere, wallowing in your own misery." I leaned forward, pulling a folder from my briefcase, laying it on the table between us. "You've been stealing from me. From my family. From everything my father worked for." David's smile faltered as I opened the folder, revealing the documents. His face went pale as he realized I knew everything. The illegal transfers, the secret accounts, the manipulation of key staff members, it was all there. I didn't need to raise my voice to make my point. The evidence spoke louder than anything I could say. "You and Emily thought you could run away with my family's legacy," I said, calm, collected. "But you made one critical mistake. You underestimated me." David shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his arrogance fading. I could see the panic beginning to set in. "What do you want, James?" "I've already got what I wanted." "You're going to stop everything. Right now." I stood up, moving around the table to stand over him. "I'm going to take this to the board. I'll expose everything, the embezzlement, the betrayal, your entire scheme. They won't stand for it." David's eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape, a way out. But there was none. I had him cornered. The law, the company, the board, he was powerless against it all. I gave him no room to argue. "And if you think you're going to take my company, David, you're mistaken. I'm going to make sure you're out of business. A hostile takeover isn't just an option anymore, it's inevitable." The meeting with the board was a formality. Everyone already knew what was coming. I revealed the evidence, each document piece by piece, watching the shock spread across their faces. They couldn't believe what Emily had done, what David had been complicit in. There were whispers, a few gasps, but in the end I regained control. The business would survive. We would rebuild. But it wasn't just about the company. It was about everything that had been stolen from me, the trust, the loyalty, the life I thought I was building with Emily. Later that day, Emily reached out to me. Her voice on the phone was shaky, filled with uncertainty. She begged for forgiveness, for another chance. "James," she said, her voice almost pleading, "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was lost. I thought I needed more, but I see now that I've lost everything. Please just listen to me. I'll fix it. We can fix it." I stood in my office, the weight of everything settling on my shoulders. The betrayal, the anger, the hurt, it was all still there. But it didn't matter anymore. Not really. She had made her choices and now I had to make mine. "I loved you, Emily. I truly did. But I can't forgive you for what you've done," I said, my voice steady, unyielding. "You betrayed me and you betrayed everything my family built. You took it all and now you've lost it." There was silence on the other end of the line. I could almost hear her crying, but I didn't flinch. I didn't soften. I had to be strong. For the company. For my father. For myself. "I'm done," I added, my voice resolute. "This is over." By the end of the week, I had regained full control of Sullivan Industries. The board supported my decision, and David's business was crumbling under the weight of his own corruption. But regaining the business was only the first step. I had to rebuild everything. Trust. Loyalty. The legacy my family had built from the ground up. Emily had taken more than just money from me, she had taken something irreplaceable. But I couldn't afford to dwell on that. I reached out to Catherine and a few other key players in the company. Together we would rebuild from the ashes of betrayal, stronger than before. Sullivan Industries was my responsibility now, and I would make sure it thrived once again. But the road ahead wouldn't be easy. I wasn't just rebuilding a business, I was rebuilding myself. And for the first time in a long time, I realized that the true legacy my family left me wasn't just in the business. It was in the strength to move forward, to rise above the betrayal, and to fight for what was rightfully mine. Emily had taken everything, but she hadn't taken my future. That was still in my hands. The days after the board's decision felt like the beginning of a new chapter. One that I hadn't planned for, but that I was determined to write. Rebuilding Sullivan Industries wasn't easy, but it became my purpose. I started with the people who had stood by me through it all, the loyal employees, those who had never wavered in their commitment to the company, even when Emily had slowly eroded it from the inside. I spent long hours with them, discussing new strategies, revisiting old ideas, and most importantly, restoring their faith in what we were building. They had believed in Sullivan Industries before, and I was going to make sure they believed in it again. Slowly, we started seeing the fruits of our labor. Clients returned, investors regained confidence, and the buzz around the company began to pick up once more. It wasn't as simple as flipping a switch, but every small success felt like a victory. But I knew it wasn't just about the business. I was a different man now. The person who had once been consumed by ambition, who had sacrificed time with family to chase success, was no longer in charge. That man had been replaced by someone stronger, more focused, and more aware of what truly mattered. I spent time with my younger brother, Mark, who had distanced himself from the company ever since I got lost in my marriage with Emily. I had pushed him away, always too busy with work to realize how much he had to offer. Now I needed him more than ever. We started working side by side again the way we used to when we were kids. Mark was sharp, with fresh ideas that balanced my experience, and together we began rebuilding the company's foundation. The bond between us grew stronger than ever, and it felt like Sullivan Industries was no longer just my responsibility. It was our legacy together. The family name was something we could both stand behind. As the weeks passed, I began to feel the weight of the past lifting. Sullivan Industries was getting back on track, and I was finding my own peace in the process. I thought I was done with Emily, but she wasn't done with me. She reached out one last time, a hesitant message asking if we could meet. She had left everything behind, her new life with David, the business, and the future she had once shared with me. But now all of that had collapsed. David's company was struggling, and Emily had no one to turn to. She wanted to talk, to apologize, to make amends. Part of me wanted to hear her out. I had loved her once, maybe a part of me still did. But I couldn't forget the betrayal. I couldn't forget what she had taken from me, from my family. I met her in the same place we had first discussed the future of Sullivan Industries. But this time I was no longer the man I had been. I was not the man she had left behind. "I'm sorry, James," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I made a mistake. I know that now." I stopped her. "You had your chance, Emily. You made your choice. I'm not that man anymore." Her face fell, and I could see the regret in her eyes. But I wasn't angry anymore. Just empty. Empty because I had let her go, and with it, I had let go of everything she had stolen from me. She stood up, her shoulders slumping, a defeated look in her eyes. She had lost everything. The man she had chosen, the life she thought she would build with him. None of it had panned out. She had given up her family's legacy for a future that never came. "I see," she said softly. "Goodbye, James." I didn't watch her leave. I couldn't. I knew she was gone, and I had no reason to chase her. I watched Emily walk away, not with bitterness, but with the knowledge that she was a part of my past, and my future was no longer tied to her. Sullivan Industries was on the rise again, but more than that, I had learned to rebuild my own life. One where I could finally see past the walls I had built around myself for so long. I had my family back. I had my brother beside me. And now I had a chance to rebuild everything with a new purpose. One that wasn't defined by betrayal, but by loyalty, hard work, and the legacy we would leave behind together. And this time I was ready for whatever came next. Sitting alone in my office, the weight of everything that had happened over the past few months finally began to settle. I thought about Emily, about the woman I had once trusted, the woman who had been by my side when I first started this journey. She had walked away with the one thing that meant the most to me, my family's legacy. And yet, in the end, I realized something profound. Betrayal hurts. It cuts deep, leaving scars that take time to heal. But through all the pain, I learned the most important lesson I could have. Family, loyalty, and trust. Those are the real foundations of success, not just wealth, power, or the things I once thought defined me. When I lost Emily, I thought I had lost everything. But now I see it differently. I didn't just lose her. I gained something far more valuable. Self-respect. The understanding that my family's legacy was never about any one person. It was about the collective strength of everyone who came before me. My father, my grandfather, they built this company on the back of hard work, trust, and sacrifice. And now it was my turn to do the same. As I stood up from my desk, I looked out at the city skyline. The lights twinkled in the distance, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking at them with the weight of the past on my shoulders. I was looking at them with a renewed sense of purpose, a future that was no longer clouded by betrayal. I still had a long road ahead, but now I knew the path I needed to take. I wasn't bound by the mistakes I had made or the people who had hurt me. I was free to live on my own terms, to rebuild my life and my company from a place of integrity, not fear. The legacy I would leave behind wouldn't be one of bitterness or vengeance. It would be one of strength, of loyalty, and of the deep understanding that the true measure of success is found in the people who stand with you, not just in the empire you build. And with that, I knew that no matter what came next, I was ready.